I have assembled my favorite barbecue accessories by different price bands. This is one you're going to want to accidentally leave open on a loved one's computer. Thanks to Butcher Barbecue for sponsoring today's video. Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and if you saw my recent video on accessories that are a waste of money, things like these Wolverine claws, we've all fallen for them, it's okay, and you guys let me know I wasn't the only one in the comments. There's nothing like that in today's list. This is the good stuff. Stood the test of time, tried, tested, and true. My top 3 accessories by budget. So I broke this video up into chapters for easy reference, so you can jump back and forth to any different section, and I'll be sure to list anything that I'm mentioning in the description down below, along with any savings codes. Sometimes companies will reach out and say, hey, I have a save 10% coupon or link for your fans, and so if I have one of those, I'll put it down below so you can save even more money. So without further ado, let's get started with my favorite accessories under $50, and I'll try and stick to just 3 for each category, but since I think under 50 will be a very, very popular category, I've thrown in a few honorable mentions for you as well. So let's get started with my favorite gear under 50 bucks. So first up is some smokeware gear. Now you've heard me talk about these pans before, so I won't spend too long, but a quick overview. This has been maybe the best discovery I've had in 10 years of grilling, is using a drip tray. I never used to use one, and my deflector plates or the slow roller would get a whole bunch of food, build up fat, grease on that. The next time I go to light my grill, I'm getting white smoke and sometimes waiting 30-40 minutes before I can get cooking on that. This eliminates all of those issues and is game changer, especially with the slow roller, for keeping it clean. So quick overview of the sizes. 10-inch pan fits perfectly in the Joe Junior. You've got some choices now for the Classic or the Big Joe. They both fit. The 12-inch pan, which will mirror the top portion of the slow roller, so you're not going to get any overhang that might interfere with the smoke circulation design of the slow roller. Or if you want to get even maximum protection, you can go straight for the big guy, the 14-inch pan, which is what I use in my Big Joe as well as my Classic. If you were trying to decide between the two, I'd just go for the big one. And it's just outside being under 50 bucks, but this is one where I have a save 10%, so it makes the list, is this smokeware vent cap, which I have on my Joe Junior. Don't really need it for me in here because we're covered and I'm no longer getting rain and snow and everything like that on top of my grill. But what you do gain is stable vent settings. So when you open your dome, you don't have your daisy wheels swinging open. And so if you're new to grilling and struggling with keeping your vents stable, this solves all that. So you get this along with the gasket that you need to fit on the Joe Junior. So that's number 1. Let's move into number 2. Next up is an essential item, and it is around 25 bucks. That is high heat gloves. Now this pair is almost 2 years old this spring, and they are still working just as well as the day that I got them. And I like this style because they're the long sleeve. So when you're getting in, picking up some hot stuff, you don't get the risk of burning your forearms. I've tried sort of a shorter style and a longer style, and I just find that I prefer these. So these are made by JH Safety, I think. They're on Amazon. I'll put a link down below. They're affordable. There's a couple others that I've tried over time, and I just found that they end up peeling or splitting open. The first pair or 2 that I had on the channel, it only lasted me a month or so. So these have stood up incredibly well for the abuse that they take. And if you're handling deflector plates, pizza stones, soap stones, or even just your grids or components, these are a game changer. Let's go on to our next item. So next is a little bit of a joke about getting charcoal under the tree, but it's under 50 bucks, and it's actually, if you've never tried it, something I would highly recommend. So Fogo has quickly become our family's favorite low smoke charcoal. And what do I mean by low smoke? What I've learned over years is that I'm standing out here when the smoke is rolling, that sort of saturates your palate, and you may not notice how strong some of those smoke flavors coming off your charcoal can be. My family, on the other hand, doesn't have that, and they notice right away, and they absolutely love the food that I've been turning out lately using Fogo, and they're not wrong, and I really notice this on leftovers the next day. So outside of the joke for Christmas and charcoal under the tree, it's always a great time to try new charcoal and find one that's right for you. That's sort of how I've been evolving and learning what I like, and more importantly what my family and friends like, since I want to grill and I can only grill if they want to eat the food. So go ahead, give this a try if you haven't already. Let's keep going, but I've got a few more bonus edition items under 50 bucks. Okay, some extra honorable mentions below $50, and so you seen the channel all the time, I'm using things like Diamond Crystal Kosher Salt for dry brining. That's my absolute favorite. And then for finishing salts, I have two that I like. I love this Malden's Smoked Sea Salt, as well as a Fleur de Sel. So depending on what type of dish we're going for, those two are absolutely awesome, and I use them sort of interchangeably. Next up, it'd be a meat injector. And this is something I absolutely hated when I first got it. Well, it's because I was injecting a pork butt and it exploded and went all in my face. So I didn't use it for a long time after that. Thankfully, I didn't get salmonella, but just had a big mess to clean up. But this has been something I've really turned a corner on over the last year or two, especially for things like that turkey where we did a compound butter injected turkey or injecting some beef tallow. And so this has gone from bottom of the list with a little bit more experience and practice to absolutely 2 thumbs up for a gear, a piece of item below $50. Next to is some cast iron. And so this is the Lodge, it's a 10¼ inches side to side, but 12 inches total. So this fits perfect in the Joe Jr. And so you can do things like asparagus, bacon, whatever else you might be doing on. I use this one all the time. And another one is the Lodge 5-quart Dutch oven. I have the 5 and the 7. They'll fit both in the Classic as well as the Big Joe, but the 5-quart one sits in the X-ring in either the Classic or the Big Joe, so it's nice and secure. You don't have to worry about knocking over your soups or chili or anything like that. And lastly is the honorable mention of a pellet tube smoker. So if you're into cold smoking, maybe doing some cheese or bourbon, those are the two that we do most often here. A pellet tube smoker is really, really great for being able to get some smoke without any heat and melting that cheese or whatever else you might be smoking. So that's it for our below $50. Let's go into now everything else from here on out will be our 3 categories or our 3 winners for each price band. Today's video is brought to you by David Bosca from Butcher BBQ. If you haven't heard of Butcher BBQ or David, he packs a ton of credibility in the barbecue space. Not only is he a butcher by trade for over 3 decades, he is a 2-time award-winning barbecue champion and has appeared on one of my favorite shows on television, Barbecue Pitmasters. And so what David was specializing in and helped win those 2-time world championships is his well-balanced flavor combinations. So whether it's rubs, injections, or grilling oils and marinades like I'm showing here today, he has some amazing flavor combinations, and it takes the guesswork out of having to get these things balanced perfectly right. And so the 3 grilling oils I have a butter, a garlic butter, as well as a honey. And I've been using them on a whole bunch of different things, from chicken to vegetables to steak. And I shared in my last video a steak test where we put all 3 in a head-to-head taste test, and the family absolutely loved the honey, surprisingly, on steak. I loved that on the pork test that I did a few days later, as well as the garlic butter. And so at just under $10, you really can't go wrong. They would make a perfect stocking stuffer. So after today's video, be sure to check out the link below for David's website, as well as his Amazon store where you can pick up one of these for you or a loved one. Now back to the action with our next product category. Okay, so first up is the Meter Plus, which ironically I no longer have. I gave that to a family member since I now have the Meter Block and absolutely love it. But they both perform very, very similarly. So if you don't know the difference between the two, the Block has a few advantages. One, 4 probes, and they've just introduced a model for less money with just 2 probes, but that is not in the below $100 category. So the Meter Plus though is. The other difference between the amount of probes is that this is a Wi-Fi repeater. And so the way that this works is the probe connects to the meter base station, which then would connect to your phone, and that would update to cloud. The Block can skip this step because your probe connects to the Block connects to Wi-Fi, and now you can access that on your phone anywhere you go. And I absolutely just love the simplicity of setting up the Block, as well as the option of using more probes. You wouldn't think that you're using it, but when you're doing a whole bunch of steaks, we've got some family over and they maybe want their steak medium rare, or someone else wants medium to well done, someone else really wants well done, we kick them out because, no, just kidding. But the Block gives you the ability of controlling many different cooks and getting consistent results each time. I also love this year, the app has been updated to include notes. And so data is the best way to improve. And the meter block gives you, or the meter probe, they all do this, but they give you access to data so you can understand how your adjustments are impacting what's going on with your cook, how your vent settings evolve over time to get that consistent, repeatable results, as well as, you know, what opening that dome and leaving it there for 5 minutes did to your temperature. And you can make a note of that in the app so you're able to get those repeatable results in the future. So I'm a big fan of all the models, but just a caveat there, the difference that the Meter Plus uses, it needs to be in access of a Wi-Fi device in order to upload to the cloud, whereas the Block has that Wi-Fi router built right in. They both give you the same great experience with the app. They both give you the data logging. It's just a choice of how many probes, and you want that seamless connection to the cloud so you can wander off and check in on your cook from anywhere. Next up, under $100 is a wing basket. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you already know I'm a big fan of the wing basket. I understand they've been hard to find, they've been selling out, but I checked on Amazon today and it's still there, so I'm gonna include it in the video, hoping that you can find one. So this is the Napoleon wing basket. It just fits in the Kamado Joe Classic. I often leave these undone because if you tie them really tight, they might be touching the edge of your Joe rotisserie, so you don't really need them, just leave them undone and it spins just fine. And on the Big Joe, you've got more than enough space. But there's a lot of fun things you can do with this, some French fries, some other ideas. Some I might even do some chestnuts roasting over an open fire for a Christmas video as we get a little bit closer to the holidays. But for wings, you really can't beat these. These are fantastic. So I'm a big fan of the wing basket. Let's go on to my last below $100 item. Next on the list is charcoal baskets. Now, I am a big fan of the charcoal basket, and I've added them to all my grills over the last 10 years that haven't come with them, and it wasn't until the Series 3 Kamado Joe that is now included. But if you have an older version of an egg or a Kamado, or especially something like the Joe Jr., the basket is a great upgrade. Now, what does it do? It adds a lot more airflow, which really helps in terms of getting up to temperature quickly or making sure that your fire doesn't go out. It's easy for cleanup since, again, you just shake it and all that loose sort of ash falls right through to the bottom. You can just scoop that out. And on the Joe Jr., if you take it with you places, ceramic can take a long time to cool down. And so if we take it with us camping to the beach, wherever we might be going, we want to get that into our vehicle, that hot ceramic can take a long time to cool down. And so what I do with the basket is I just pull it out, set it in the sand or the beach, extinguish those coals, leave the Joe Jr. open, and it is cool to the touch and ready to go back in our vehicle in no time. And so not only does it add more air, easier to use, it just makes it practical for taking places on a ceramic grill that doesn't normally like to cool off. So this basket in combination with the vent cap is a game changer on a small grill like the Joe Jr., where you're just able to get that much more air, and it makes it really easy to maintain temperatures. Now you notice I have two baskets in front of me. This is the Kamado Joe basket. This is the Kick Ash basket. It's hard to find a difference. I did a test earlier in the summer. The Kamado Joe basket sits ever so slightly less than a ½ inch lower. The Kick Ash basket sits that much higher. I can't tell a difference from cooking, so it's really just, again, what you can find available, the price, and the brand. They're both great brands. I love supporting small business when I can, so I tend to recommend the Kick Ash basket, but you're not gonna go wrong in either case. On the price though, even though Kick Ash basket has a link and I've had that down below, I discovered this is on the SmokeWare site, and SmokeWare gives me a 10% off code site-wide. So the best buy from a budget perspective is actually to get the Kick Ash basket one through SmokeWare site, not Kick Ash basket's website, and you get yourself a bit of a deal, at least before that gets discovered and taken down. But swarm, get your deal. All right, on to our next category. So if your budget allows, there are some amazing accessories just over the $100 range. And so the first one I'm going to share is the ThermaPen. And so I have two here, but this is maybe the best new product of 2021 that I've bought and absolutely fallen in love with. This is identical from a ThermaPen perspective. It's the same product on the inside, but what this one has, and that prompted me to buy it, is it's got an infrared scanner on the inside. And so this is not only allowing us to do everything that we would would do with a ThermaPen and go for probe feel, check our meat in different areas, make sure that it's completely done evenly all the way around. But this ThermaPen IR has a built-in infrared scanner, and so I'm able to, a temperature reader, and so if I want to know what temperature my soapstone's at, pizza stones, etc., it's able to give me that information. And there's been times where I thought it was ready and it was maybe 450 degrees on the soapstone and I'm looking for 600 degrees. And so that means instead of throwing your steak on and it just starting to cook, instead of getting a great sear, you can completely skip that and know that you're getting repeatable, good information every time you go to cook. And so absolutely love finding the use cases for this, and it is hands down been one of the best purchases of 2021. So this one was really hard to pick just one, so I of course picked two. And so this category is all about knives. And so if you saw my recent video on that, I've shared after a year of use and putting through all kinds of torture tests, I'm a huge fan of my Dalstrong knives, and I've had a terrible run up until that point. So I don't want to repeat that whole video here, but it's in the recent videos that I've done this month if you want to go check it out. And so the one knife I would get if you're looking at adding your first knife is a chef knife. And this is the Dalstrong Shogun extra long chef knife, and I like this one because before I had a dedicated slicer, it would serve not only as a chef knife, which I would say if there's one knife I use most often, it's a chef knife, but the extra length allowed me to act like a quasi slicer as well. So if I was doing brisket or ribs or something a little bit oversized, I could get away with using the chef knife for that as well. The second one, since I'm adding a bonus one here, has to be the fillet knife. And this is over a year old, still razor sharp. And my first experience with a filleting knife is I got one to trim briskets. And by the time I was midway through the brisket, I would have to stop, clean the knife, and sharpen it. It wouldn't even hold an edge, just working its way through a tough brisket and removing silver skin and fat. This has been a game changer in terms of doing this light work and trimming things up. And a year later, again, is still sharp as new, which I don't know how they do that, but this has been a great add. So if you're looking for a knife, I would either go something like this fillet knife if you don't have one, or a chef knife if you're looking to get your first knife that will be your partner for barbecue grilling for years and years and years to come. So last on, just above the $100 range, is my Grill Blazer grill gun. So I have two here, and so a quick overview of the differences between each one. This is the sous vide gun, which is about 240,000 BTU. So that, turn that off before someone gets hurt. So that's about 240,000 BTU, which is still plenty enough for lighting your charcoal as well as for searing your steaks, because it has that little bit of a diffuser on the end, which is regulating the power from being maybe a little bit too much, which the grill torch is if you're trying to use that for a steak, or if you're going for lighting your charcoal, lighting your solo stove, you can go for the big guy, which I would recommend because, again, this extra length here just keeps you that much further away from the fire. And lighting the Big Joe, lighting the solo stove, this is absolutely the one I'd go with. But if you only had the sous vide gun, you can absolutely get away with it, especially if you have those high heat gloves, just to make sure you're keeping your arms away from the fire. So that's it for the just above $100. Let's go into our last category. So if you've made it to this section, somebody really wants you to have a great holiday, since these are the items a little bit higher in the price range. And so we'll put them in the money is no object. What are some great accessories? And so I've got three plus one to share with you. And the first one will be my first two from my top 5 grill accessories, which is the Joe Tisserie and the Soapstone. So these are two great accessories if you have a Kamado style grill. The Joe Tisserie I absolutely love. I've fallen in love with it from the flavor that it adds to being able to move your coals around and finish things at different temperatures. We absolutely love ours, and it's become our favorite way to do poultry, picanha, those wing basket wings that I mentioned earlier come out absolutely fantastic. The Soapstone has replaced basically every other grid that I own. So from cast iron to that laser cut disc to the stock grid, this thing is amazing. Whether we're doing something like breakfast outside and we want to do bacon and eggs, to searing a steak, to scallops, fish, etc., you name it, it is incredibly versatile. And on the Joe Jr., if you get the round one, it doubles as my pizza stone. And so that's actually what we've ended up using for our pizza stone. It is incredibly versatile. The next one would be what I showed earlier, which is the meter block. So whereas you can find the meter plus at $100 or below on sale, sometimes it's in that $70, $80 range. The meter block, if you can swing it, is so useful because of that Wi-Fi connection experience. So I won't repeat all that in the below $100 section. If you skipped right to here, go check that out because I'll explain a little bit more about the meter block. And then lastly on the list, and so we're in December here recording this. I'm in Canada. It is not warm, and so I'm actually staying warm in between shots is heading over here to my solo stove, which is helping keep the dexterity in the fingers and keep me warm. As good as this Smokin' Dad merch is down below, it is not enough to fend off what Game of Thrones warned us about, and that is, at least where I am, winter is coming, or it's here. And so this is the Bonfire smokeless fire pit. And if you've been following my channel or heard any of this backstory for a while, we originally did an outdoor fire pit, but it put off just too much smoke, and enough smoke that was an irritant for some neighbors. And so after a little bit of use, our friendly fire department will be showing up saying, too much smoke, you need to shut that down. We've had the solo stove for over 6 months now, and not a single complaint from any of the neighbors. And even just coming inside, outside, you can't, it's amazing, you can't smell the smoke. So not only do I use this as, keep James warm as it gets cool, there's cooking accessories that come with that also just add some extra utility. And so I've done weird things like chicken wings on it, turned it into a Kamado, and made some pulled pork on it. Or what would be a little bit more normal is reverse searing a tomahawk ribeye, and that was absolutely fantastic. So I've become a really, really big fan and use this way more often than I thought early in the year when we got it. And I love fire, so if you happen to be someone who loves fire, you're watching this for someone in your family who loves fire, this is a great add. I hope you really enjoyed today's video. It was great to hang out with you and share some of my top 3 accessories by budget, and I hope for your sake that you end up with at least one of them under the Christmas tree this year. If you enjoyed this video, please let YouTube know by smashing that thumbs up button, and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Until next time, I'm James from Smokin' Dad BBQ signing off, and remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.